A very warm welcome to this presentation of the NCS Color Trends 2023 and on. I am so happy to see all of you here today and very excited to introduce you to our forecast for 2023. Let me begin with a story, fascinating story. The other day, I was walking on a street in the middle of Stockholm, and suddenly I see this carpet. I don't need carpets. I have enough carpets, but I saw one of the most beautiful carpets I've ever seen. So I went into the shop and I bought this carpet. The reason I tell you this story is because the only reason that I actually bought this carpet is because I liked what I saw. So due to my visual assessment, what I perceived, I made a decision to buy. Keep in mind that 90% of your purchase decision usually depends on the color that you perceive. This is how important color is. This story is important also because this story is the reason why we are here today as Dalagenturer agency in the middle of Stockholm, because this is the place where I bought the carpet. Our color preferences change over time. And this is why it's so important to understand and talk about color trends. So, this is what we will talk about today, our color preferences for 2023. So before introducing you to the trends, allow me to talk to you a little about the way we work when we develop our color trends. We follow two main areas, or main things. One is what we call the repetitive cycle, okay? In most trend forecasters world, we usually talk about a 20-year cycle. If you look at the fashion industry today, and I will come back to that, in the fashion industry they talk a lot about the return of the Y2K trends, for example, the trends that were very important when the millennial came. So this is a repetitive cycle we follow, and this has to do with our color psychology. When we get tired of a certain area, when we've been bombarded with certain colors for a period of time, we get tired and we want to go to the other extreme, okay? In general terms, we can say the peak right now, what we're looking at, and to simplify things very much, is that we're coming into an era where we're in the phase of the more pastelish, the lighter colors. We are leaving the brownish, the darkening phase before coming to a more neutral phase. But these stages overlap, and you will see this in the presentation, that there will be influences for several of these steps where we are today, depending on who you are, what industry you work with, and what region you live in. Okay? The other thing which is very important is what we call the drivers. As we talk for a global color trend forecast, the drivers are what we call the mega drivers, the global drivers that affect us all in a similar way. Some of these drivers push our moods or the colors that belong to the moods more than others. So this is what we have to recognize, these two parts, right? The repetitive color cycle and the drivers. When we talk about color trends, we have decided to divide up in 4 groups. Because we are different as human beings, depending on where we are, who we are, we have different kind of mood sets and different kind of preferences. So generally speaking, we usually have one trend that is a more comforting mood, where we feel very comfortable and cozy. We have another trend that is more exploring for us who want to seek a little bit new things, challenge, the traditional color schemes. And then we have a radical color scheme. A radical phase of colors for us who want to be more trendsetters, to be top-notch in the trend cycle, right? And then we have, finally, a more joyful color trend. For all of us who like a little bit more bold colors, colors that brings a little bit more happiness, emotions and excitement into our homes and our products. This is the simplification. Not all of us always belong to one of these 4 groups, but these 4 groups kind of summarizes what most of us, the kind of mood sets that we have and the colors that we prefer. To be able to do this, and to be able to point out directions, in what direction the color preferences are moving, we need to work professionally with color. And that's why the NCS color system, the way we visually can identify, point out and communicate colors, is a super important tool to work with to make this understandable and very precise. And I recommend you guys to do the same, because we need to talk about color in 3 dimensions. We always need to talk about the hue and the nuance of a color. Sometimes the hue is more important and sometimes the nuance is more important. We have to address all dimensions, right? It's not only us at NCS who develop these color trends. We have an extremely professional team of color experts globally. We have Baulab in Italy, in Milano, experts in CMF. We have Laura Perryman, who just wrote this fantastic book about color, of Colors of Saying. We have Daikun and Weiwei from one of the leading color design and architect companies in China. We have Mark from BASF Automotive, one of the leading experts in forecasting colors for the automotive industry. We have Nakarat, this fantastic French color architect organization, experts in what is happening in color and architecture. And we have finally Peggy Van Allen, the president of Color Marketing Group. This association that we have collaborated with for many, many years, and is the largest non-profit color trend organization on this planet. Peggy has also her Color Fuel company, so she works also professional with color. So this group of color people, color experts, together with us, are the ones that do the forecasting. So let's talk about the colors for 2023. And the image you now see on the screen in front of you, I think is a perfect representation, a summary of what 2023 is all about. It's about our planet, but it's not the way we are accustomed to see our planet, because we are facing a planet of a completely new normal. We call this year the year of renewal. And you can see that newal is not the traditional way of writing new, because it's a new normal. Things that we have not seen or experienced before will happen and is happening at the moment, and will happen much more 2023. We talk about a year, a re-year. We have the renewal of things, the reuse, we reinvent, we recycle, we restore, we repair, we rethink, we re-evaluate everything. Because this is a new reality we're facing. And that's very important to keep in mind. We are in a moment in our lives of an extreme consciousness of our planet and the survivors of our planet. So we are entering an era of an extremely important conscious consumption that will lead and help assist everything that is necessary to make this planet a beautiful place to live in, right? A lot of us talk about an era of anti-consumption, where we stop the mass consumption of goods. And that is partly true. A lot of us will be very conscious and stop consuming. And instead of consuming new things, we will continue using our existing things and instead making them more special, repairing, redoing, to make our unique products, because uniqueness is something that is becoming more and more important. But there is another reality in this, because we as human beings like to consume. But the way we consume will change. It will be a new kind of consumption. And this is driven a lot by what is happening at this moment. When we began the forecasting, we actually thought to call one of these stories Metaverse story. But it came too fast. Metaverse is already here. Facebook has called themselves Meta already, investing a lot of money in this new concept world. Why? Because we are entering an era of what is called now the Metaverse. We call this the avatar economy, where we can consume, we can continue consuming, which is perfectly ecological. Because to consume digital things does not pollute our planet, or at least very little. We're talking about reductions about 90% if you compare physical products and we compare the digital products, right? So there is a number of new things that we have to learn. We have to learn NFTs, non-fungible token. We have to talk about blockchain, cryptocurrency, Ethereum, Robux. I mean, it's a number of new terminologies that all of us have to learn, because this is the new normal. In the digital world is where we consume. Recently, there was one NFT, this unique art objects that we designed digitally, that was sold for $69.3 million. This is a digital thing. This is where the companies now are investing their money, because this is where we will consume. Because when we build our avatar, our representation of ourselves, we want to dress ourselves. We want to show everybody else that we are trendy, we are up to date, we are unique. So we buy these items from these different companies, right? And it's not only items. We buy houses, we buy spaces. It's an enormous thing happening right now in the digital world, which we call Metaverse, right? So the examples are coming very strongly. This is something that 2023 will be influenced by a lot. Seoul, the capital city of South Korea, has declared themselves that they will be the first capital city in the world to be a Metaverse city. So this is coming very strongly, and you can see by already now that the colors are becoming more and more important. Because in the digital world, you need color to be able to buy things, to be attracted to things, and to show things, right? We also have addressed for a long time the enormous movements that are going on our planet, globalization. Things are happening today, and when we talked about forecasting in the past, we already forecasted that these big political economic movements of changing among the superpowers and our leaders will have a huge impact on 2023. Unfortunately, it is taking a turn that we did not expect, but the movements are there, and we are all influenced by what is happening on these global levels, which is very important, because we are globally facing a completely new normal, which is fascinating. And hopefully all of us together will make this new normal something very, very good. So let's do this together. So let's talk about trend number one. Trend number one is a very intimate, comforting story for all of us who have been through this years of loneliness, isolation in our homes, and now suddenly we can meet people, we can hug people, we can be together with people. It's a very warm trend. At the same time, it's a trend about recharging our batteries. Because we know there is a new normal coming up. And to be able to face the new normal, we need to have this moment of comfort, of intimacy, right? So the trend is very soft. The colors are very light colors, but warm colors. The materials are biological, soft wool, right? Tinted in the most ecological way you can imagine, for example, with bacteria. And being that we do it so ecological, obviously we cannot produce so strong and chromatic colors. But we try to keep them warm. We want them to be on the warm side, right? So this is a place to nourish our hopes and nurture ourselves before we emerge towards the new normal, right? One of the key materials in this trend, besides the normal wool and everything, is mycelium and other kinds of the new things that we use to produce material in the most eco-friendly way that exists. This story is called cocooning. Like going into the cocoon, warm and nice, before we will emerge as beautiful new butterflies, right? And this is where we'll be. We want to be there. And at the same time, we want to have the warmness, and we want to have the sparkle of something more energetic. So it's the constellation of warm colors with a very high energy color, the coral red color, together with very soft warm materials that we need to have in our surroundings. We need to feel the softness of things. And here you can see a mood board, for example, where we have put together a constellation of materials, soft and nice materials with this color constellation. So the colors are warm, together with a very important neutral color and the coral red color, because red we are seeing is coming stronger and stronger. So there will be red colors in these presentations, and this group, this red color, takes a very important position and function of being the energy. Understanding that we will need to take action one of these days and face the new normal, right? So if you look at the positioning where the colors are, you can see that they are very similar in hue. All of them yellow-red colors except one, which is a R20B color. And they're sampled actually in a very similar area in the upper left corner, so they're pastelish and light colors, and you have a brown and a red accent. And the brown represents many times wood, because wood is important in this story also. We have it as furniture, as details. Together with other soft material, we need wood because it's also very warm and comforting for us, this natural material. And the red, the coral red, needs to be there in details. So we have this energetic kick because something needs to happen. So we see this now coming out on a lot of products, and still coming back to the same thing we talked about before, we want things to be and being perceived as unique. So we see a lot of new designs, a lot of new ways of presenting very conservative or traditional material. It can be anything from bathrooms to electrical appliances, right? In our interiors, of course. To summarize, pale pinks and coral, the red, and brown as accent. This is the summary of colors of this trend number 1. So let's look at now trend number 2. And you will see now and perceive that these trends is like an evolution. You go step by step towards the new normal. Because trend number 2 is when we have decided to leave our cocoon. And for all of us already now to take the next step and experiment and explore the new normal. Understanding when we begin to explore the new normal, we face a new reality that we don't know entirely. And it might happen a lot of things around us. But what we have identified in 2023 is that there is a lot of movements, a lot of seeking or trying to find ourselves, both individually, but on a complete planet, on many different dimensions, right? So these journeys sometimes can be extremely rewarding, but sometimes also very challenging. And as you can see in this picture, I think it's a very good representation of these two mules in the mountains. It's a journey that is not always very simple. So it's a mood representing that we might step into an area that we're not extremely familiar to, but we want to be there, we want to do this journey. And what two of the colors that are extremely important in this journey is exactly what you see on these mules, a red and a blue, that are used and will be used a lot together. So we see reds and we see blues coming very strongly, but what we above all see in 2023 is the constellation of red and blue together. Because it's like these two things are happening in the world, and we can see this on a global way, in the political way, that there's a lot of reds and a lot of blues together, right, happening right now. We have talked a lot about refugees because all of this was initiated with the big movements of people escaping from wars, right? From terrorism and everything. And this is now becoming another story, because now we see refugees of the climate. People escaping from the countries because the climate is changing so dramatically. So this is another physical journey that is taking place, that is affecting our moods, because there are so many new things happening. The globalization is what I mentioned before, is here to stay. Before, we have talked about globalization for a long time, but it's been a more comfortable globalization. We go somewhere, we meet people, we go back to our homes, you know. But now we have a complete new globalization, it's a new normal. And I want to show you this example as an illustration. How many of you 10 years ago would have turned on the television and watched a TV series in Korean? Today, the new normal is when we turn on the television, it's not only in English or our own language. Suddenly, we see TV series in Korean, in Chinese, in French, in Spanish, in German, from all over the planet. And we want to hear that. Because the globalization is here to stay. It has changed our way of thinking and perceiving things. Right? This journey that we are doing is also represented in the kind of material that we see coming very, very strongly. And I'm sure you've heard about this in trend forecasts before, that, you know, durable material, resistant material, material that you can use for many, many years is very important. And together with this blue and red we have talked about, we can see that denim, as an example of this very resistant material, is becoming a key material for this story, together with the more earth raw materials that we experience. As you can see in this picture, denim is something that we will use a lot, but we will remake our jeans. We will add details to it to make them unique, because uniqueness, once again, is more and more important. And we take advantage of this now, that we have this anti-consumption perception or attitude, right? So we discover a new adventure. Like our ancestors, we set out in the unknown to brave the elements, is the summary of this trend. And it's a quite bombastic trend, and as you can see, we have chosen an image that represents this enormously important global movement that is taking place right now, with blue and red taking a very important position. We call this trend story passages. Very simple. And it's, like I said, a bombastic trend story where red and blue takes a very big position, supported by more earthy colors. But we have an orange and we have a dark yellow that is coming very strong. So we can say there's a return of an orange also that is popping up. Specifically, we've seen this in automotive industry. And here you can see some examples of these different colors of different kind of materials. So we have the very important blue, the very important red, not too strong, not too chromatic colors, together with a neutral gray, earthy colors. We have the dark yellow and the orange, the return of the orange. Yay! Very important, right? And you can see the distribution, which is quite interesting. And keep in mind, we don't look at this before the final conclusion. We make the analysis after we have concluded the colors. But look at this picture. You have 5 colors that basically have the same blackness. So there's an enormous similarity in blackness in this trend story. And you have a contrasting lighter color. So we have both hue contrasts, because the contrast is so important, and you have the similarities in blackness when we talk about this trend, which make this color scheme together, all the 6 colors, extremely interesting to use together. As you can see in these pictures, where we suddenly add a lot of color, to have this feeling, bombastic feeling of a journey towards a new normal, right? So, conclusion. Dark and dull blue and red, together with colors of earth. Orange and dark yellow are coming strongly. Let's go to trend number 3. Now we have been in the cocoon. Some of us have decided to begin a journey, a passage, that we're not really sure where it will take us. Many of us have done that already, and we have concluded we have reinvented ourselves. According to a lot of statistics, about 86% of us are sure that the pandemic will bring some kind of change. But we have sat in our houses isolated for such a long time. We have been thinking that I do not want to do what I have done all my life. I want to do something completely new. This is also pushed a lot by Gen Z, because Gen Z wants a new planet, new things. From a branding or from a company perspective, the Gen Z who are now beginning to consume but also take leadership of companies and political leadership, they demand transparency, they demand truth and ethics and inclusion. And if you don't do that as a brand, they will hold you responsible. So in another word, we can say that we are entering an era in 2023 that we really, many of us will take it for granted that you respect these values, and that the brands and the companies that distribute our materials have these values. Have you heard about Tanping? That's a Chinese term. Tanping in English, and what is known in the Western Hemisphere, is also called the Great Resignation or the Big Quit. In America, according to statistics or research, about 95% of all of the people are prepared actually to leave their professions and to do something different. Not all of us will do that, but many of us have been thinking and wanting to do that. This trend story addresses us who made a decision to leave and to do something completely new. So there's a new normal that emerges. From having been or having done the same things all of our lives, suddenly we change and do something completely new. We throw out the old. Brands are completely, the most conservative brands are now changing and entering areas where they have never been before. A new normal is a regenesis from our most rooted and traditional values to a new, sincere and profoundly personal normal. This is the story of regenesis. A story of contrasts of the new and the old. The rebirth, the reinvention of ourselves. Right? Where we throw out the old and we welcome a new thing. Completely new. that we believe is the perfect new ourselves, the perfect new world, right? This is a quite harsh trend in a sense that it's a very contrasting, light and dark. And it's also the kind of CMF, or the material we see, has to do with a lot of metals in a new kind of appearance. When we talk about, we talk about green gold, pink copper, things that we're seeing coming out, metals that are looking and being perceived in a completely different way, right? And here you have some examples of a material, a constellation of these contrasts that you see, because the contrasts are very important. If you want to belong to Regenesis, and if you want to feel that you're a trendsetter, you need to have contrast, specifically dark and light colors. So we have a dark blackish color, a dark purplish colors that should be combined with a light yellow or other light colors. And we also have a petrol blue that is already strong but is becoming stronger and stronger, and representing this regenesis of ourselves. Perfect color for that. And as you can see in the triangle and the circle, you can see there is an enormous hue contrast, and we also have an enormous nuance contrast, where we have three colors that are very similar, they're very light, and three colors that are dark. But these should be combined and used together. Let's look at the final story, trend number 4, because now we have been cocooning. Some of us are beginning a journey towards the new normal. Others, we already reinvented ourselves in a complete new appearance. But we also have a story that is pushed a lot by the generation or the Gen Z. And what we have addressed in the introduction, the metaverse concept. In the trend forecast workshop that we had last year, there was a lot of talk about joining the physical and the digital world. And suddenly Facebook changed to metaverse, and everything is now metaverse, right? So it's all about ourselves stepping in to another world which is digital, but believing and sensing that this is the real world. So it's an alternative world we're stepping into when we talk about metaverse. What is happening already is that the companies are now investing in the metaverse, as we talked about before, in selling products that we can use in metaverse, in the digital world. There's a lot of money here, a lot of money. Nike just bought this company because Nike said, well, if we're going to grow as a company, we need to grow into metaverse. And the interesting part is that when we buy a pair of shoes, it shouldn't only be digital, they should also come in physical shape. So both of your shapes, both the digital and the physical person, can have the same things digitally and physically. So this is one of the things that is pushing this trend story a lot. The Generation Z are the ones pushing this. And the Generation Z is now old enough to take leading positions in companies and in politics. And these guys are pushy. But they come from an era of depression. We talked about in the last trends for 2022, the radical happiness. Gen Z invented radical happiness. They do not want to leave this. We are now pairing, coupling, putting together the metaverse, the digital world, and all of these colors that come out together with the playfulness of Generation Z. So this trend is all of you who want to work or be or have or use a little bit more bold and happy colors that are influenced a lot from the digital world. Because the Gen Z, they want to take responsibility now. But they are used to be playful, and they don't want to stop that. They resist in becoming serious, boring people. They want to take leadership, they want to take responsibility, but they also want to be kids. So the responsible individuality is the zeitgeist, right? But this kind of adulthood is far from boring and gray. It should be playful, happy, like the kids. So we call this kidults. The story of taking huge responsibility to make this world a better place, but in a happy way, in a nice way. So the kidults is all about taking in these colors from metaverse. We have, you know, the reddish blue colors, the pinkish colors, we have orange, together with other colors, in material that has to do a lot with transparency. When we see a lot of glass, for example, with sprinkles of color or spots of color, so colored glass pieces are very important. We see also these color constellations come into our interiors through light sources, the LED lighting. It's hardly today, it's almost impossible to buy a new car if you don't have colored LED lights in the car, because we want to surround ourselves with these colors. So we have a feeling that we are partially in the real world and partially in the metaverse, the digital world. Right? So the colors that are being pushed a lot are these orange, right? The ultramarine blue, the fuchsia colors together with the pastel blue, light blue and green colors and the neutrals. All of these together get this feeling and mood of being happy, joyful, and with one foot in the physical world and one foot in the digital world. Right? And just a point here that I want to underline. When we had the forecast, we had China, we had Italy, we had UK and United States that actually came with the exact same color, which is this 4055 or 4550 R70B color. So among all the millions of colors that we can perceive, all of these four countries chose one color and it was the same. That is extraordinary. So this is an indication how strong this color area will be for 2023. Keep that in mind. And here you see a constellation in different kind of materials of these colors and the way they could look in your design. If you look at the distribution in the color space, right, you see that a lot of colors are reddish blue colors or bluish red colors between red and blue. So we have a contrast of the orange and the green color together with the red and blue colors. And just by finalizing this, green is one of these colors that have been very popular for a long time. As you can see, we don't have so many greens anymore because we have had green present for so long that now we want to add more warm colors and red-blue colors, right? So we have a contrast of chromatic colors with light colors. Very metaverse colors that you can see already coming out on the market in the most extraordinary constellations or combinations of colors and other products. And I want to mention this trend is also pushed a lot. What I mentioned in the beginning about Y2K fashion, the fashion that was very trendy in the millennial. When we were using handbags that were very conservative, but now with spots of color. This is what the fashion industry is referring to as coming back now in 2023, right? Chromatic digital colors in ultramarine and light blue, orange and fuchsia, together in contrast with pastel colors. That's the summary of this story that we called Kidults. So now you have seen these four stories, trend stories: cocooning, passages, regenesis, and Kidults. Different stories, different moods, everything from very comforting, very warm, to quite bombastic, contrasting, and happy trends. And we feel that you probably belong to one of these stories, because they are so relevant for 2023. If you look now at the distribution of all of the colors, you can see that there's a lot of warm colors. There's a YR between yellow and red, and there's a lot of colors between red and blue. and not so many on the green side as I mentioned before, right? And we see a lot of contrast between dark colors, quite chromatic colors, and light colors, and midtones. No, they're not there so much this year, right? If you compare 2022 and 2023, you can experience and perceive the same kind of color differences. And I want just to show another thing, because all of the colors we have shown to you, all of these 24 colors, has its own reason to exist. It's not only that they belong to these groups, but each color we have identified will be very important for 2023. And each color is not only that they can be used in one of the groups. We can mix these colors because all colors are relevant. You can create your own mood set in a very simple way. Let me show you. So if you put this constellation of colors together like this, it's a nuance arrangement where you have light colors, dark colors, and chromatic colors. You can put these together like this in a very simple way. You can, for example, choose these three colors because they are similar in chromaticness, right? And as they're similar in chromaticness, very easy to work together with them. If you take these three colors, they're very similar in blackness, right? Positioned like this. If you see these colors, we talk about the contrast between light and dark. And you can play around which dark and which light you should have and what you identify yourselves as the perfect color choice for you, right? So they have similarities in this case, both in you have similarities and contrast in hue in this case, right? And here you have another kind of contrast of dark and light. They're contrasting in blackness, but they're similar in chromaticness, right? And we can continue like this, which makes it very simple for you to choose your colors, your color combinations out of these 24 colors. So to finalize, I need to promote this publication, the trend book that we prepared, where you will find obviously the 24 colors physically, because remember that both physical colors and digital colors are important. Here we have physical colors. The content of this book is very, very important from a CMF perspective. So you have both color material and a much more detailed storytelling of what this is all about. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to finalize to thank Dahl Agenturer, this agency where I find my carpet, to give us the possibility also to give this presentation in a fantastic inspirational environment. Because color is inspirational by itself, but it's a lot better if we have an environment that is inspirational. So thank you, Dahl Agenturer, very much. Thank you for listening. Good luck with your colors. Use color. Don't ever forget that color is one of the most important features in your design. With that, I thank you, and I wish you good luck, and I hope to see you in person next time, not on a screen.